18 steps to a HACCP plan. Here we go. Meat and poultry. Meat and poultry processors, welcome. 18 steps to your HACCP plan. Let's check this thing out. All right, I prepared this training for meat and poultry processors regulated by 9 CFR 417 USDA. And there's a series of 18 steps that's going to help you conduct your hazard analysis and write your HACCP plan. You're going to want to get a copy of the current edition of the Meat and Poultry Hazards and Controls Guidance. I've attached a link in the description here in the training. But make sure you stay up to date on that. Make sure you subscribe. Keep a copy of that around. Help you. Again, we're going to go through 18 steps. Step 1 through 5, those will be my preliminary steps. Step 6 through 10, I'm going to conduct the hazard analysis. And then step 11 through 18, we're going to write the plan. So get ready, get your guide ready, get yourself ready, and let's do this. 18 steps to a HACCP plan. Meat and poultry processors, welcome to the class. So on top of having your guide handy, make sure you have a hazard analysis worksheet and some HACCP plan forms handy, ready to go. I've attached some links for you in the class description or in the video description for you so that you can use those. Again, you'll need a hazard analysis worksheet and a HACCP plan form. These 18 steps that we're going to be going through using the guide, we can fill out these forms and ultimately end up with a HACCP plan that meets the requirements in 9 CFR 417. You do need to know every detail about everything you do all the time. You do need to be HACCP trained and knowledgeable to be carrying out this activity according to the regulation. So get your forms ready. Here we go. All right, you'll see in the top left corner of both the hazard analysis and the HACCP plan form a space where you can record your company name and address. Yes, company name and address, top left corner on the forms. You see the space there I've highlighted here in the slide. Let's get that done. Name and address right there. Company name and address. Step 1. All right, 18 steps to a HACCP plan. Here we go. Step 2. So you can see there on the forms, top of the form, right side of the form now, top right. Let's fully describe our finished product now. What is it? A frozen ground beef patty? Whole pork loin? Is it fully cooked, not shelf stable? Get into the package type. There's some examples for you on the slide. Is it vacuum package? Is it an aluminum can? Is it bulk? Make sure you record the specific information about your finished product. On the top right corner of there, you'll see it on the form on your hazard analysis worksheet and the HACCP plan. Step number 2, fully describe the finished product food. All right, here we go. Step 3. Now it's time to talk about the method of storage and distribution. Is it frozen? Is it refrigerated? Is it shelf stable? You'll see there on the right side, top, second line down, method of storage and distribution. Let's go ahead and take care of that now. Step number 3, 18 steps to a HACCP plan. Record on the form, hazard analysis and HACCP plan form, your method of storage and distribution. Do that now. All right, step number 4, intended use and consumer. Is it ready to eat? General public. Is it to be cooked? General public. Step number 4, right side of the document, up there on the right, you'll see the top third line highlighted for you in the slide. What is the intended use and consumer? Let's record that now based on the product you're analyzing. What is the intended use and consumer? Go ahead and record that now on your form. Okay, here we go. Step number 5. According to 417.282, a flow chart describing the steps of each process and product flow in the establishment shall be prepared, and the intended use or consumer of the finished product shall also be identified. The purpose of the flow diagram is to provide a clear, simple description of the steps involved in processing of your meat and poultry product and its associated ingredients as they flow from the receipt through distribution. The flow diagram should cover all steps in the process that your firm performs. Receiving and storage steps for each ingredient, including non-meat and poultry ingredients, make sure you include those as well. I like to say include all the inputs, all the outputs. The flow diagram should be verified on site for accuracy. One other thing that's important for USDA is USDA requirements is the flow diagram include the labeling which shows which steps are your CCPs. So that's going to be important. Which steps on your flow diagram are CCPs. Now I know we're going through the hazard analysis now, but once we reveal what they are, we're going to label this flow diagram with our CCPs. Step number 5. Let's create a flow diagram. You create one based on what you do. All the inputs, all the outputs. All right, 18 steps to a HACCP plan. We're getting ready to move into step number 6 already. I just want to make sure you got your top filled out, name and address, got your product description, intended use of consumer, method of storage and distribution, all that good stuff. You went ahead and build out your flow diagram, right, based on the steps you do in your facility. You verified that. Make sure it's accurate. Make sure what you have on paper is what you're actually doing, because we're getting ready to get that on this form and start analyzing this thing. So we're moving into step 6, just making sure you got step 1 through 5 ready. Here we go. Step number 6, get ready. Step number 6, here we go. 18 steps to a HACCP plan. So you're going to take the steps from your flow diagram, your verified flow diagram, and you're going to put those in column 1 on your hazard analysis worksheet. Now, if you have a lot of steps, you're going to need multiple pages here. So make sure you get as many pages as you need. I've attached a link in the description. You should already have that and downloaded and working on it. But just in case you skip that part, download that document, fill out the top step 1 through 4, do your flow diagram, step 5. Now take the steps from your flow diagram, enter them here, step 6. 18 steps to a HACCP plan, meat and poultry. All right, moving along. Step number 7, 18 steps to a HACCP plan. Using the meat and poultry hazards and controls guidance, the guide attached in the description, look up each of your processing steps for the potential process-related hazards for your product using either the quick reference table for process steps in slaughter on page 2 or the quick reference table for processing steps for processing on page 3. Be sure to consider your particular animal type and the biological, chemical, and physical hazards for each processing step. Make sure you look them all up. Each step, either for slaughter or for processing, considering your animal, look up each processing step, looking at those tables on page 2 or page 3. Write down the page numbers right now for the processing steps. Then you can get over there and look them up. Okay? Once we look them up, we're going to be ready for step 8. Step 8's coming up next. Let's take care of step 7 first. 18 steps to a HACCP plan. Look up your process-related hazards using the guide. Okay, here we go. Step 8. So everything that you found during step 7, all those hazards, those potential hazards for each process, either slaughter or for processing, now you're going to record those in the corresponding processing step. So record all the hazards that you found at each processing step into that processing step. Make sure you're considering the appropriate animal and the hazards, biological, chemical, physical hazards. Record those hazards in column 2 of your hazard analysis worksheet right now. We're doing HACCP here. We're on step 8 of 18 steps. You looked up the hazards. Now you got to take those hazards, put them on your form in column 2. We're getting ready to analyze them now. Step 8. All right, here we go. Step number 9. It's getting hard now. So you really need to understand all of these hazards. If you don't, you might need to go back to the book. What book? Textbook, the book on the particular topic, do some studies. So you need to understand salmonella. You need to understand things like allergens and physical hazards and what defines them and how do they get there and what happens if they are there. And so Once you feel like you got a pretty good understanding for the type of hazards you're up against, you're going to want to determine whether those hazards are significant. We need you to understand them first before you make a decision here. So are they significant? You're going to answer yes or no in column 3 of your hazard analysis worksheet. But again, make sure you understand them. So for each of the hazards listed in column 2, you need to make a decision. Are they there? Are we putting them there? Are we making them worse? Or are they significant? Are they introduced, enhanced, or controlled? Look at each hazard at each processing step and answer yes or no in column 3. Now, for each answer in column 3, yes or no, column 4, you're going to justify that decision. Why did you say that? Why did you say yes? Why did you say no? Now, if you don't properly understand it, your justification probably won't be right. So again, understanding each hazard is so important before we take this journey in step number 9. So, make sure you understand the hazards, determine if the hazard is significant, say yes or no in column 3, justify your yes or no in column 4. Now, if you say yes in column 3, that means the hazard's significant. That means that we could hurt somebody, injure somebody, sicken somebody, or maybe even kill somebody. So now we're going to need a response in column 5. We're going to need a control measure in column 5. So we're going to cover the recommended control measures in column 5 on the next slide. But don't forget, as a USDA facility, you're subject to 9 CFR 416, which is the sanitation requirements. Step number 9, determine if the hazard is significant, yes or no, justify your decision, and let's get prepared to put some control measures in column 5 if we need it. All right, let's wrap up step 9, a little bit more on step 9 here. So remember, for every hazard you said that was significant in column 3, if you said yes to a hazard in column 2, you said, hey, this hazard in column 2, salmonella, E. coli, listeria, allergens, metal, whatever it was, if you said yes to one of those, you justified it in column 4, but now we need a control measure in column 5. Well, you remember when you looked up each of the processing steps and you were given a page number to find the hazards, well, there's a special column there that says frequently used controls. So those are the ones you're going to want to look at and see if some of those will work for you. So look at the frequently used controls on the corresponding processing step, again, for the right type of animal, and make sure you have the appropriate control measure for the hazard that you said is significant. Again, if you don't understand the hazard, you may not pick the appropriate controls. So make sure you understand it, determine if it's significant, answer yes or no in column 3. If you say yes in column 3, justify it in column 4. If you say no in column 3, justify it in column 4. If you say yes in column 3, you'll also need a response in column 5. And that's where we're going to use the frequently used controls recommended by the USDA on the tables. As you can see, I've circled one in the slide here in the guide. Step 9. Spend some time here. Let's get this done right. Understand the hazard. Determine if the hazard is significant. If it is significant, what control measure you're going to use. Consider the ones that are frequently used given to us by the USDA. So last little tidbit on step 9. Simply answer the questions in order, working from left to right for each hazard that you revealed in the guide for each processing step. Simply answer the questions in order on the form. You should be able to take care of column 3, 4, and 5 right now. All right, moving on to step 10. It isn't going to get any easier here. We've got quite a bit of stuff left to do. Remember, we're working on 18 steps. Don't get too excited. We're on step 10, I know. Going downhill. But we got to make sure you stay with it. Step 10, now we need to determine what step or steps are our critical control points? From my understanding, the USDA is going to want to see at least one. So don't try to say you don't have any. Okay, they're going to want to see one. So you may have more than one. So what step or steps are my critical control points? So for every hazard you said yes in column 3, you should have a response in column 5, what you're going to do for that hazard. Now you need to determine what step is the best step to perform that activity. And that's going to be the step where you say yes, it's a critical control point. So you need to work through that. We're working on step 10. What steps or step is your critical control point? The best step to control the hazard, to prevent it, to eliminate it, or sometimes reduce it to an acceptable level. Step 10. Identify your CCPs. We're finishing up the hazard analysis now. Get ready for step 11. Start setting up our plan. So 9 CFR 417.2b says if you have a hazard, you need a plan. So you're going to need that HACCP plan form. Earlier when we were doing step 1 through 4, you should have had the top all completed. So now, if you have a CCP, a hazard, you want to bring that over here now. So we're getting ready to do that. So we're going to get this set up. Step 1 through 10 was my hazard analysis. Now we're going to wrap up here and go step 11 through 18. Build out a plan. I want to show you how to do these 18 steps, remember? So get your HACCP plan form together if you found a hazard, because 9 CFR 417, right? That one says if you have a hazard, you need a plan. 18 steps to a HACCP plan, step 11. So let's get our HACCP plan set up. So find the processing steps that you have identified as CCPs in column 6 of your hazard analysis worksheet. Record the names of the processing steps in column 1 of the HACCP plan form. Enter the hazard or hazards for each of these processing steps that you identified in column 2 of the HACCP plan form. So this information is on your hazard analysis worksheet. 9 CFR 417.2c, which covers the contents of the plan. C1 and C2 tell us to list our CCP and our hazards. According to the regulation, step 11 is required on the plan. Let's get that done. Step 11, 18 steps to a HACCP plan. Write in your CCP and your hazards on your HACCP plan form. All right, step 12, we got to set the critical limit now for each of the processing steps that we've identified significant hazards. So on our form where we've said we have a hazard, we now need to identify a critical limit for that. So we know what our enemy is. We know where we can defeat them. Now we got to talk about how we're going to defeat them. So we need to establish this critical limit, this maximum or minimum value to which a parameter is to use. This parameter is used to control a specific hazard. So the critical limit shall be designed to meet all applicable targets or performance standards that are required by the USDA. So you're doing step 12 now, but you're really going to need to understand things and know what you're up against. Make sure you've looked at all the requirements for the particular hazard. So of course you've done some study outside of this video to make sure you're ready to now put your critical limit in there. You might need to use work with a process authority, do some scientific studies, look at USDA requirements or guidelines. Make sure you consider all that stuff. Step 12, critical limits. We're on the HACCP plan now. Now that we said we're going to do something, this critical limit to control this hazard at this CCP, we have to monitor it. We have to make sure we actually do it. And we have to produce a document, a record. We have to do step 13. We have to do our monitoring now. Typically the monitoring is made up of 4 questions. What are you monitoring? How are you monitoring? How often are you monitoring? And who is monitoring? So you're monitoring your critical limit at your CCP for the particular hazard. The monitoring needs to be real-time and accurate. It can be continuous monitoring done by a continuous monitoring device. But whatever the monitoring is now that you've revealed, document, or that you've revealed you're going to do, what you're going to perform, what activity you're going to perform. Let's put that in your HACCP plan now, your monitoring procedures. Step 13. All right, step 14, here we go. 18 steps to a HACCP plan. We're doing good. I hope you're following along. I hope this is helpful for you. If you like this thing, make sure you subscribe. That sure would help me out, get me motivated to do some more videos like this. I'm hoping this helps out the industry. What we're going to do here is step number 14. We're going to set up our corrective action procedures now. 417.3 says, 9 CFR 417.3 says, you shall have corrective actions. You shall have them listed on your plan. Your HACCP plan shall have them. Now, it's possible that something happens that your plan doesn't list. Well, it also says that you have to take care of those scenarios too. But right now, you're going to prepare an if-then scenario for a response to a failure on that critical limit, a deviation to your critical limit. During monitoring, if you reveal a failure, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to fix it? I want you to make sure you take care of the food, the product, and restore the process. Make sure it doesn't happen again. So we're looking at a couple things. We're looking at the food. How can we fix that? We might have to throw it away. How can we fix the process and make sure it doesn't happen again? So corrective actions, we call those if-then scenarios. Step number 14, 18 steps to a HACCP plan. You're on your HACCP plan form now. You want to go ahead and prepare a corrective action in response to a potential deviation of your critical limit. I hope you never do. All right, making our way through the HACCP plan, we're on the verification validation tab. 417.4, 9 CFR 417.4 says you need to prove that what you're doing is going to work. Validation, you need to prove that you're doing what you said you're doing, like record reviews and calibration and things like that. So there are some requirements here. So you're going to want to build up some verification validation activities that support your program, that support your plan. At a minimum, it's going to be a record review prior to shipment. Regulation requires that. But depending on the processing step, what else can you do other than monitoring to determine the validity of your plan, the validity of your program? Verification, validation. Step 15. I like to say it this way. Are we doing what we say we're doing? Are we doing the right things? How do we know they're the right things? Verification, validation. Don't forget, we're trying to build this plan, but we want to make sure it's also in compliance with 9 CFR 417. Step 15, establish your verification. Let's get that on our plan. Oh, I almost forgot. Yeah, in the guide, there's some recommended verification strategies, some suggested programs. So you should check that out. So go to the processing steps in your guide for the step that you determine that the hazard was significant, and there'll be some suggestions there. I've circled it on the form. Should be pretty easy to find. So that'll help you with step 15. What verification procedures are you going to use for those particular steps? USDA Meat, Poultry, Hazards and Controls Guide. Make sure you're up to date on that. It's sure going to help you out on your plan here now. Check it out. I don't know if you know it or not, but if you don't have a record, you didn't do it. So step 16 is going to be pretty important. What records are you going to need to support the CCP? What records will you have? Well, at a minimum, you're going to have things like monitoring records and corrective action records, maybe some verification records, which could include things like calibration or testing or other things like that. So what records are you going to need to support that CCP to make sure you're showing that you got things handled? So step 16 says, let's establish a record-keeping program and list the records on our plan that we're going to be using and have available for review by USDA at all times. Make sure you get your records tab done. Step 16. Almost there. 18 steps to a HACCP plan. Working our way through. All right. Once you've got all your steps completed, 1 through 16, Now you're ready to get this thing signed and dated. Very important. The signatures by the senior most responsible individual or most responsible individual, and it's going to be dated as well. These plans are never going to be older than a year old, so that's important. So we got to track these. You might want to put together a digital calendar. Make sure you put it into your iPad, your desktop, laptop, Google Calendar, whatever you're using, so that you don't let it get too old. It's going to get signed and dated here, step 17. Of course, you've completed all the steps prior to this. This is being accepted now by the firm, or if this was a reassessment, it's being accepted by the firm, or if it's part of the verification, it's being signed and dated, accepted by the firm. Most responsible individual. Go ahead and let's get this thing signed and dated. Step 17. 18 steps to a HACCP plan. All right, now you got it signed. It's time to implement this thing. It's time to do what we said we're going to do the right thing, be morally upstanding, protect the public. If you protect the public, you protect your brand. If you protect the brand, you protect your business. If you protect your business, you protect your personal livelihood. And it goes far and wide. Step 18, implement your plan. 9 CFR 417 says, hey, if you have a plan, you got to implement it too. So implement your plan as written. Make sure you perform what's on the plan. Do it as you're bound now to perform. You've told the USDA you had a hazard. Now you're going to have to manage this thing. So hopefully you've had a good time, or I helped you a little bit walking through these 18 steps to a HACCP plan for meat and poultry. Don't forget to stay up to date on your guide, Meat and Poultry Hazards and Controls Guidance. You can subscribe to that. There's a link in the description. There's a subscribe option, so you get any updates. Thank you for coming by. 18 steps to a HACCP plan, meat and poultry. Good luck out there.